going on, Notre Dame fans? Mike Singer from blueandgold.com with our resident football coach, Tim Hyde, talking about Notre Dame's new wide receivers coach. We'll get into that in just a moment. Make sure you guys hit the thumbs up on this video. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't yet, and go to blueandgold.com. $1 for 1 year of premium access. Now, Tim, at blueandgold.com on the message board this morning, we first reported that Notre Dame would be interviewing Chansi Stuckey. That was the first mention, to my knowledge, from the media that Notre Dame was looking at Stuckey. Younger guy in his 30s. The Irish stole away Baylor's receivers coach. Now, he played college ball at Clemson, career in the NFL. So before his time with Baylor, he was just Baylor's receivers coach for 1 year, and that was this past season. He was a GA, a support staff guy at Clemson's, his alma mater. So pretty green as a coach. So, Tim, when the reports come out that Notre Dame is hiring Chansi Stuckey, what's your initial reaction?
Well, the initial reaction is, who is this guy? You do his quick background check, because first off, if he's at Notre Dame, he's on campus today interviewing. How did they hear about him? What's the connection that you have? Obviously you seek out his name, and the connection is his NFL connection. Believe it or not, it is all things lead back to who you know, and that's in the NFL, and obviously major Division I coaches is filled with who you know in the business. That's who you're going to hire, and that's who you work with. In this case, you got Tommy Rees's 1 year in the NFL, 2016, with the San Diego Chargers, produces his good friend John McNulty. And who was John McNulty coaching with over the years? The OC that year was Ken Wisenhunt. Well, you go back a little bit farther, you talked about him playing in the NFL. His position coach in the NFL was John McNulty. Ken Wisenhunt was the OC. I'm sure Tommy Rees is like, here we go. We got a young up-and-comer. Not only that, obviously you mentioned Clemson. He was an offensive GA, so to speak, with Dabo. Well, who was his position coach for 4 years at Clemson? Dabo Swinney. So you got a guy that's been trained, worked with, coached under Dabo Swinney. So he's got the Dabo stamp. When I read that, I was tickled pink. I was happy as could be. You got a young coach who's obviously trained under some outstanding football coaches. So it sounds like Marcus Freeman loved him in the interview, and there you go.
Now, Tim, here's something kind of interesting that I've picked up on here. I'm sure others have as well. Notre Dame, Notre Dame's quarterback coach Tommy Rees, Notre Dame guy. Obviously, that's a big time program. Lance Taylor, his alma mater, Alabama. What about McNulty, Penn State guy? Stuckey, Clemson. Your defensive line coach, Mike Elston,
Michigan.
He's a Michigan man. And then you got all these Ohio State connections. Cincinnati. I mean, it's like maybe Cincinnati not at the level of those other programs, obviously, but just played in the college football playoff. Had you noticed that, Tim? That's something I kind of found interesting. It's like you look through and it's like, man, these all guys are played for some big time programs.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, definitely just going over the offensive staff, getting ready to chat with you and, start going over that is the guys that just the offense in the offensive staff room. You got a lot of guys with some NFL, experience, guys with big time backgrounds and big time programs. Obviously you're bringing in Harry Hiestand. Here's a little nugget on Harry. The year Marcus Freeman was drafted in the NFL by the Bears, the O-line coach was Harry Hiestand, believe it or not. So that's quite interesting there. Not that Harry coached him, but he was on staff with them. So there's a little background there. Outstanding football coaches, guys that have played at the highest level. And obviously the man in charge going into his first full season, played at the highest level, played for a multiple national championships. Marcus Freeman, Ohio State, like you said. I think he's going after guys who have played at the highest level, high achievers, guys that know what it's like to work hour after hour, deal with the pressure, the media, and most importantly, in this business, the high-end recruiting that's going to take place with this staff. And I think Marcus Freeman is going out and getting those guys.
So you touched on Hiestand. Obviously, he's coached with the Bears. You got Stuckey, played in the NFL.
Yep.
Lance Taylor coached the receivers for the Panthers when Christian McCaffrey
Hmm.
with that connection. Tommy Reese was, an analyst of sorts with the Chargers, and that's when he worked with McNulty. McNulty, if you look at his Wikipedia page, he's got a long.
Got
I
a
mean,
lot.
he's coached for a lot of NFL teams, so yeah, quite the good bit of experience there, just on the offensive side of the ball with the NFL connections, like you said, very
And
interesting.
and then one more, obviously the O line, the future O line coach in waiting is Chris Watt, who's played in the NFL, and obviously he's a hairy guy. So that's another guy that's going to be on that offensive staff.
So when we posted this news at blueandgold.com, Pete Sampson originally reported it from the Athletic on three zone. Matt Zenitz, of course, we're on the On Three Sports Network. Our senior college football reporter confirmed the news. There are a lot of Notre Dame fans who were not happy about this hire, and my response to that was, well, one, Tim, unless we remembered Stuckey when he was playing, with Clemson or in the NFL, like
Hmm.
most of us, whether it's Stuckey or Jamarcus Shepard, who we believe interviewed with Notre Dame this week, and the Irish essentially picked Stuckey over Shepard, or the Alabama coach, like all of us didn't like intimately know these guys. Heck, we still don't now, but we didn't really know all these guys' backgrounds 2, 3 weeks ago, and now we're all of a sudden these wide receiver coach experts. So I'm telling Notre Dame fans like who are upset with this hire, like one, like we're not wide receiver coach experts. Like we don't know these guys. We weren't flies on the wall for those interviews. Again, Notre Dame, we're assuming, picks Stuckey over Shepard. Shepard's now the Washington receivers coach. That news broke around the same time. So it's like, what do we have to trust? Is Freeman and Reese interviewed those guys and trust them? I mean, look, let me tell you something. Who had 20 plus years of wide receiver coaching experience? A Southern Cal graduate and from Los Angeles, coached, in the Pac 12, in the Big Ten. Del Alexander, his resume is fantastic. And you know who Notre Dame fans wanted to run out of town, and I guess kind of did? Was Del Alexander. So Stuckey is kind of the opposite of Del Alexander. He's younger, about by 12 years. Lots of NFL experience playing. I think he's going to have a great energy to him. I said this with Brian Kelly, and I'll let you interject here, Tim. When
Hmm.
you lose Brian Kelly, the next guy to replace him is kind of the opposite. A defensive minded guy, a lot younger, much more energetic on the recruiting trail. I feel like Stuckey's kind of the same going from Alexander to Stuckey. So that's kind of me on my soapbox. Well, I'm sure you got some thoughts, Tim.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, number one, we don't know. These are just names, and you see resumes, and I know everyone was excited about the Purdue. There's rumors about the Alabama coach, who I'm aware. I know who that Alabama coach is from his playing days out here in Los Angeles. So, outstanding football coaches all around. But sometimes it goes back to who you know, and it's not like they hired some guy who has never done anything. They got a guy who's played in the NFL. He's going to have an NFL pension for life. He's been around a lot of coaches. Eric Mangini, Rex Ryan were his head coaches. Ken Wisenhunt. So he's been around some football guys. And then what I like is the Dabo factor. I really do. I mean, you got one of the premier, college football coaches in America, Dabo Sweeney, who coached him basically, was a father figure to him for 4 years, goes off to the NFL, comes back into coaching, goes right back to Dabo, and he's working with Dabo. What I like real quick is this. How about this young man's last 2 seasons? ACC champion with Clemson. And this year, he's the wide receiver coach for Baylor. Well, Baylor wins the Big 12 title, wins the Sugar Bowl title, and he has just spent a year under, one of the top, up and coming young football coaches as well, and Dave Aranda, who has a national champion on his resume as the DC at LSU. So you got a guy who's been around some Super Bowl coaches, national championship coaches. I don't know how you're not excited for this guy. On top of that, he's from Georgia. Where does Notre Dame constantly go to recruit? The state of Georgia. So you got a guy with some really good ties down in that area. I think it's awesome. I really do. I'm really excited about this young man after reading about him and knowing the people that he's been around.
Notre Dame fans, sign up for just $1 of premium access, blueandgold.com. If you do so before February 3rd, 2022, we'll also throw in a free Founders Club hat. So again, link blueandgold.com, $1 for a year of premium access. All of the coaching nuggets, recruiting information, access to our blueandgold.com staff. Tim Hyde's on the board. Mike Goolsby's on the board. I'm on the board. Thousands of Notre Dame fans are. So all the info, all the conversations, and it's $1 for your first year, and we're throwing in a free Founders Club hat. So exciting stuff. And you talked about the
Yes.
Dabo factor, Tim. Lance Taylor, the running backs coach, is a Nick Saban factor.
Yes.
So yeah, kind of going back to that conversation earlier. So now it's defensive coordinator, I believe, is the last opening that we're waiting for. And Football Scoop had I believe it was John Heacock, the Iowa State
Iowa
defensive
State.
coordinator, I believe, as the emerging candidate and interviewed this week. So just how are you feeling about this staff overall, Tim? And, I understand the Notre Dame fans who are a little skeptical right now about the receiver hire because you have a first-time head coach and you have this super young and green. Oh, I guess Stuckey's older than Freeman, I believe, but it doesn't have as much coaching experience
Hmm.
as Freeman. So, just kind of your thoughts here, Tim.
Well, he's kept the gang together on the defensive side. Marcus Freeman worked with them, side by side all season long, knows who they are. He's got great relationships. More importantly, he trusts them. And, when you're a first time head football coach, you want to go out and bring in your guys. And defensively, those are his guys. One of his closest best friends, the corner coach. He personally hired O'Leary to be the safeties coach. Elston's a staple, and now he's got to go get the DC. Offensively, obviously Reese was the biggie to keep. Reese and McNulty, it looks like, are buddies for life, so that's a pretty cool thing there. Taylor, his pedigree, his background. Just don't forget, his years at Stanford and the running backs he produced at Stanford. You got a top-notch football coach there. And then they went out and got Harry Heastan, who, when it's all said and done someday, he may have 3 NFL Hall of Famers on his resume with, Olin Kreutz, the Bears center, and then obviously Zach Martin from his days at Notre Dame, and Quentin Nelson. You got
Wait,
3
no, Tim,
guys
it
he's
should be
coached.
4. Joe Alt, obviously.
Joel, he's got a while to go. He's got a while to go. I'm just saying that he's got a while to go. But I mean, seriously, I mean, the 2 bookend freshman tackles, whoo, way down the road that are going to be on Harry's resume. I'm a big believer in where you're from, who you've worked with, and that's going back to Marcus Freeman, his days with Tressel, his lineage that's going back to there. That's why he brought in his best friend James Laurinaitis from Ohio State, and the same thing with Stuckey, his background with Clemson and Dabo Sweeney. And you mentioned the Iowa State DC. Coach Heacock, well, who's his brother? His brother was the longtime defensive coordinator for Jim Tressel at Ohio State. So you're going back to Columbus, Ohio, bringing in those Ohio State big football, big time program intensity to South Bend, if that's the case. And I'd be really excited if that is the DC, because now you're bringing in a guy with a lot of experience, who's called a lot of football games over the years.
All right, that's Mike Singer and Tim Hyde talking about new Notre Dame wide receivers coach Chansi Stuckey. Now, as we record this, the university has not announced his hire, nor have they announced Harry Heastan or Brian Mason, the offensive line coaches and special teams coaches, respectively, but should be seeing that sometime here soon. Appreciate you guys for watching. Hit the thumbs up, and we'll catch you next time.